Hello guys, so I'm in your face once again. So for those who are medical doctors, I repeat, are medical doctors planning to come to Australia, whichever country you are, the video I'm about to share is a very resourceful video. And this video is something that I want to give credit to Ajay for sharing this video, and also I will be crediting a lot of his works. This video is a thorough explanation on the steps you need to take to become a medical doctor. And as you watch this video, please take out your pen and your paper as a medical doctor and write this thing. So for doctors, if you wrote your PLAB 1 and 2, there are some levels you need to skip, which means you don't have to write your AMC 1 or 2 again. All right. So watch to the end.
This talk is all about your career here in Australia, from get-go all the way up to the end. Sometimes you tend to have all the information but don't know where to start. So in this conversation, for the purpose of ease, I'm going to divide this conversation into something about myself, my journey through the UK and here in Sydney, Australia. Then I'll talk about what can you do as an intern, as a resident, and even as a mid-tiered or a senior doctor back home in your own country to improve your chances of getting a job without any career gap. That include exams, courses, and rest of the bits and bobs. Next up, I'm going to talk about how to check if your medical school is recognized for Australia purposes, then EPIC verification, how to build AMC portfolio, and how to register for AMC Part 1 exam, and what are the various resources that you need to have to prepare for AMC Part 1 MCQ exam. After that, we're going to talk about the AMC clinical exam, how to register for it, and what are the various resources to prepare for this exam in terms of average time and so forth. After that, we're going to talk about what are the different ways to apply for a job, because remember, you can apply for a job in Australia straight after AMC Part 1. So what are the websites that you need to know, and what are the different hospitals throughout different states in Australia that are known to be IMG friendly. Then we're going to talk about different pathways of registration, including the standard pathway, which is via AMC 1 and AMC 2 route, then the competent authority pathway, and specialist recognition and a GP pathway. Lastly, I'm going to talk about my top 10 questions that get frequently asked and what are the answer to those questions. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. This is going to be an exciting video, so please make sure that you watch up until the end. Australia is obviously a beautiful country. It's got beaches, it's got good weather, it's a large multicultural society. So why not, I'd say. Also, the points which are specific to the professional needs: good salary in terms of RMO, $80,000 to $120,000, average savings up to $1,500. Registrar salaries could be as much as $150,000, and a consultant salary could be between $250,000 to $500,000, and GP could earn as much as $350,000. Obviously, there's lots of option of doing private work. So if you do that, you can double your income. Good specialties to work in is ED, ICU, medicine, and GP. Plenty of opportunities, plenty of prospects of growth. Hospital and GP practices sponsor visas, so it's not a problem if you're not an Australian resident. Moving on is that I think we need to build some foundation and basics. So I'll talk about how to and what to approach the scenario when you're a medical student and doing your internship. What about the resident years? What about the final years when you're thinking of moving to Australia? And how do you get started in terms of standard pathway or ANC or competent authority pathway or specialist pathway, and finally some question and answers. Moving on. So when you're a medical student or you're doing your internship, there are certain essential criteria and desirable criteria. So that's how Australian recruitment people judge you. Now, a basic medical intern would be doing an MBBS. They will complete their 12 months of house job or internship, and then they will put in their CV that they're studying for FCPS 1 or AMC 1. But a good intern, obviously completing the MBBS and internship, would have also passed, or at least in a process of passing the FCPS Part 1, would have done the AMC 1. I don't know how, but they would. When I was working as a final year medical student in our medical college, most of my colleagues who were serious about USMLE had already passed their Part 1 in 4th and final year. So do consider preemptively and planning preemptively. You must do or get in a habit of doing courses like ALS and BLS, and at least try get one publication under your belt in this internship time, that is. In a resident year, things get a bit more heated, obviously, because this is the most important year, especially if you're thinking of planning to go and leave your country. So ideal or desirable criteria would be try spend time in ED or emergency medicine or medicine. You should do ICU or CCU or cardiology, because these are good acute specialties. Obviously, as I said, pass part 1 of CPS or AMC. Do an elective, doesn't have to be an overseas elective. You can do elective in Shaukat Khanum, SIUT, or any of the local hospitals back in whatever country you are. Do courses. If you've done BLS and ALS courses, do trauma and critical care courses, and try get an oral presentation or publication again in a resident year. And obviously, you would be studying for AMC Part 2 exam. Planning for Australia, visit Australia. This adds a much more value to your CV. When you're visiting here, you can plan a clinical observership. You can do a clinical observership in GP and hospital. You can also plan for an AMC2 course or an exam, book a date for that, and you can attend a course or a conference here. So that adds a lot of weightage on your CV, and it becomes really easy to apply for jobs when you're on shore and you get a good credibility. Now, how do we get started? First of all, jump on a website, Australian Medical Council. All the instructions are given there in step-by-step format. First of all, check if your medical college or medical school is eligible for registration with AMC, and that's how you do it. Then step 2 is actually getting an EPIC verification. Google EPIC, which is Electronic Portfolio of International Credentials. Pay the fee and get your identity, verified. Step 3 is make an AMC candidate portfolio, which costs about $600. Once you make your AMC clinical portfolio, you get your MBBS degree verified through the EPIC, which would be communicating between EPIC and AMC portals. And if you got any specialist qualifications, then you'd be, getting that accredited as well. Every degree is costing $100. Now, the most important thing is that most of the candidates over here would be in a category of standard pathway. This is by and large the most well-trodden pathway. That is people who are doing AMC1, AMC2. So that is an important pathway. So let's talk about that. There's competent authority pathway and specialist registration pathway. There's all different pathways of getting registered. So know your pathway, which you qualify for. If you're a junior doctor, most likely standard pathway. So you do standard pathway AMC Part 1. AMC Part 2 is not mandatory, but obviously if you're waiting for the job, you should do AMC Part 2 as well. And it gives you an edge in your application. So AMC Part 1 is 150 MCQ exam. There's no negative marking, cost about $2,920, nearly about $3,000. Pass rate is about 60%. All final year subjects, 30% medicine, 20% surgery, 12.5% gynecology and obstetrics, 12.5% pediatrics, 12.5% mental health, population health, and so forth. There's no negative marking, and pass rate is good as said. What are the resources? These are the books, annotated MCQs, handbook of clinical assessment, anthology of medical condition, and other MCQ books, and there's some QBacks online. Obviously, if it's too overwhelming, then you can join our course. Our course is complete. You get everything provided, all the notes, guidelines, MCQs, trial exams. You are taken step by step by a very qualified tutor, and all of our courses are accessible by app, and you can also do trial exam electronically. You've passed the AMC Part 1. What do you do now? Now you can apply for jobs. Yes, in Australia, you don't have to do AMC Part 2, and that's why your credentials come in handy. So you can apply for jobs directly to the hospital, or if you're waiting for jobs, apply for AMC Clinical and do work-based assessment program. So work-based assessment program is something that you can do instead of AMC2, but the jobs are not as easily available. Normally people who opt for AMC work-based assessment are the ones who have not been able to pass the AMC, and there are few jobs. So AMC Clinical passing is much better option. Now, how do you pass AMC2, a clinical exam? So AMC clinical exam comprises of 16 OSCE or role play stations. For rest stations, it's done face-to-face in Melbourne AMC Exam Center, or can be done online. Cost is about $4,000, just over $4,000. Books are Journal Motors, General Practice, and AMC Handbook of Clinical Assessment. But it's all about practice. It's not a theoretical exam. That's how you apply through your portal, and you get a confirmation. The dates can be difficult to get, but don't you worry, because you can apply for jobs straight after AMC. In fact, most of the candidates did get a job after AMC1 in the last 24 months, in my experience. If you can't go through all that and you need a course, then we do provide AMC clinical exam courses as well, which is complete course, video course, get role plays by the tutors, and obviously accessible by apps as well. Competent authority pathway, I'll just touch briefly. It's mostly for the UK, US, Ireland, Canada, and New Zealand medical graduates, or people who have passed PLAB and have worked in the UK for 12 months. But membership exam of the UK route registration does not grant you competent authority pathway. Specialist pathway are the people who have completed the specialist qualification like FCPS, MD, and have been working as a consultant for at least 2 years back home in their own country, and they can have their training exams accredited by the respective colleges, which will give you either a full, partial, or no accreditation or recognition. GPs are in big demand in Australia. The GP training program called Australian General Practitioner Training Program can be, accessed after passing the AMC1 and Part 2. If you're a specialist GP passing an MRCP GP exam or fellowship exam from the UK, you can work here as an independent GP. There's also a PESCI interview, so people who've only passed AMC1 can also enter into the GP practice. And there's also a self-finance program called Fellowship Support Program. So say, for instance, if you passed AMC Part 1, you no longer want to wait for a job, you can apply for a self-finance scheme, which is about $30,000 to $35,000 all up. And you can start working as a general practitioner here in Australia after passing the fellowship exam. Now, how to apply for jobs? Every state and territory has its own recruitment website. You need to do the CV appropriately. You need to be answering the application forms appropriately. You need to be interviewing very good. Do apply lots of jobs in good quality, at least I say 20 to 25 jobs per month, and keep modifying your CV and application form responses till you start getting shortlisted, which means that you've just got everything in the right balance. Moving on, timelines. Normally recruitment start here June, July, interviews August, September, first offer October, and the commencement of clinical year is in January. Grades of jobs are similar to what we are known to: RMO, SRMO, or senior RMO unaccredited trainee, but you can apply for, based on your experience, apply for any of these grades. What about career gaps? Ideally, you should have no career gaps. I say that hospitals don't shortlist you if you've got career gap of more than 12 months, even though the board will give you a recognition, but the hospitals won't shortlist you. So if you've got a 12-month career gap, spend at least 4 weeks back in your own country in emergency or acute medicine. If you've got 12 weeks, similarly spend 36 months to fulfill that gap. Justifying the career gap: when you're on shore in Australia, you can do jobs as, working in, clinical practice as a receptionist. There were lots of COVID worker because they were not able to travel. So these are different options, but they are not going to count as recency. Clinical observerships are very important. They give you a ground level reality of how the things work in hospitals and general practice. You can do an observership in both of these places. You get your first job interview offers when you're working as clinical observers. There are certain paid observership programs. It also helps you get a local reference. This is very important. Now, Western Australia website, as I said, state have got their own website for recruitment. Western Australia tend to prefer AMC1 and AMC2 candidate, but do apply for jobs if it matches your credentials. There are many hospitals which are IMG friendly. Some of the big hospitals are Charles Gardner, Royal Perth, and King Edward Memorial Hospital. South Australia, you can apply just by passing AMC1. Royal Adelaide Hospital, I've helped lots of candidates getting their first job in there, and Queen Elizabeth Hospital as well. Then Queensland, Rockhampton, Toowoomba, Sunshine, Townsville, Bundaberg, big IMG friendly hospitals. Melbourne, Victoria, all of them are predominantly IMG friendly hospitals. Do apply for all the jobs in Melbourne or Victoria region. It's a big state, lots of migrant population there, lots of multiculturalism there. New South Wales tend to prefer people who've got local Australian experience, but they are desperate for doctors now. So if you've got an MC1 good credentials, you apply for New South Wales job. Canberra tend to prefer people who have got a local experience plus have passed AMC1 and 2. So if you're not qualifying that criteria, apply for it. It doesn't cost you to apply, but don't expect much. Tasmania, again, prefer people with AMC 1 and 2 and local experience. Darwin, also experience, want to give jobs to people who've got 1 and 2 pass. English requirements mostly for the registration. If you're doing occupational English test, you must have B. If you got PTE score, then you should have 7, IELTS band 7. Finally, I said that key points are passing licensing exam does not automatically guarantee you a job. You should have good job experience previously, key skills and references 30%, 33%, which is 1/3 of the job. quality and quantity of your applications is again the 1/3 of the whole process, and the interview process is also the third of the entire process. So don't give up, keep on applying and keep on improving your quality. We do have a recorded workshop if you don't know how to do the CVs. Obviously, we don't get trained in CVs and application form responses and interview. This is a recorded workshops which is bought by about 300 doctors. You can also register for it. It's completely online. Some of the most questioned: can apply for AMC during medical student years? Of course, AMC 1 can only be applied after you've completed your MBBS and you got an MBBS degree, as I showed you. Can I get a visa to come and do an AMC exam? Yes, of course you can. I've got a career gap. We've talked about the career gaps, 4 weeks for every year. I've completed MRCM or membership exams. Can I come via the competent authority pathway? Unfortunately, membership exams are not recognized in Australia and you cannot come via the competent authority pathway. Can I come work as a specialist here in Australia if I've done FCPS? Yes, you can apply through the specialist recognition pathway to respective colleges. Can I come with work as a specialist as membership MRCM, MRCP? No, they're not recognized as specialist exam in Australia. Income and tax, we've talked about good income, big tax, but there are plenty of tax breaks in various segments. How long till I get my job offer? It all depends on your credentials, how good jobs you've done previously, but good job offers can be obtained in emergency, ICU, and general practice and medicine. What do you suggest? UK and Australia? Obviously, I'd say Australia. Good weather, good work-life balance, better salaries, and expedited permanent residency and citizenship. My contact details are info@emergencyfocus.net.